Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast that whether you were injured this past weekend or not, which it's actually a pretty large list of people that were injured, so we'll thank you for that, whether you're a fan or a football player. Welcome to your favorite NFL speaking, talking, topic-based podcast in the realm that has existed for several years now. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Of course, getting lost in the idea of the monologue along the way and getting lost in life in general is myself introing things, the Iceman. Joining me on this one, of course, my two compatriots of chaos at the bottom of the screen, decked out with his beautiful collared green shirt, the Jets fan of the podcast, the games master of the program, Justin. Justin, how we doing?
This is actually a Dallas Stars shirt. It's not a Jets shirt.
Ooh,
out there.
That's a beautiful shade of green right there.
I'm doing well because it's not a Jets shirt. Dallas shirt.
And of course, the NHL season is very, very close. And Justin, in his invigorated hockey fandom, is looking forward to a season where his team can actually potentially win a championship. I feel like it's been a while since he's been able to have a season like that.
No, it's Dallas. In the year 2025, they're going to trade their two best players for a couple of draft picks. It's just the Dallas trend now. And then, I don't know, maybe it'd be bad forever. Who knows?
Oh, that would be a tough one. Well, Rick, as we are the hockey connoisseurs, the pod father up here on the top row of the screen with me, Justin makes a point. You have 25-year-old Luka being traded, 25-year-old Michael Parsons getting traded. I don't know if Miro Heiskanen is 25. I think he's a little bit older than that at this point, but the trend is screaming that him or Jason Robertson is getting dealt here, Podfather. What are we thinking of that? And also, how are we doing on this fight?
Jason Robinson's going to the Utah Mammoth, of course, because that's where all great things go to die. I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be joining y'all for another edition of the pod. And I think lower thirds. I ran out of ideas for me this week, so I figured let's just go controversial.
Let's show. Anime movies are broadly fine.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, listen, I didn't see it. It's not really my cup of tea, but I heard a lot of good things, so I figured I had to wade in with pump the brakes. It's probably fine.
I mean, I don't really go to. I mean, well, I shouldn't say I don't go. When you say anime movies, do you mean movies of like we're talking about traditional Japanese anime, or are you talking about like 2D animation movies now in general? Like, what are we exactly referring to here? I'm assuming you're referring to anime, like strictly anime, like Japanese, like Demon Slayer, which recently has come out, or like.
Yeah, that's what I think he's referencing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm gonna anger a lot of people here, but it's okay because I kind of mean it, but not really. Hayao Miyazaki's a fine director. He's not like revolutionary or visionary like that. But he's fine. He's okay.
Well. I'm not going to fight. I just know the Demon Slayer movie was fantastic. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue with some things that are fantastic, and that will be this week's edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Week 2 was something to say the very least. Teams either left week 2 with regained hope or depression, and depending on who you root for, it's going to be one or the other with the topics we're going to be talking about. Of course, this is the second week of the upcoming segment, the new segment that we came up with here for the season, which is All Gas, No Breaks. Of course, we'll get into that detail in a little bit, which then the conversation from All Gas, No Breaks will lead perfectly into the week 2 recap and review of the rest of the landscape of the NFL throughout the past week and any more in-depth discussions we want to have, which will then lead to the hashtag SAOC pick challenge for the week. And of course, as always, we end with a nice little ranting rostrum podium. Yes, we're saying podium in 2 different ways twice in the same sentence. We figured that out a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. Bit of the show. There's chaos in the name. Keep up. But of course, before we get to all that, fun, football, and chaos is the tagline of the show. Somewhere on the YouTube channel in the description. Let's have some fun. The entire show's chaotic, if we're being honest. Let's have a little bit of fun here to start. Justin, our games master, we have a return of a good old treat here. Another edition of everybody's favorite game. Name that player. Justin, what do we got?
All right. So we are going to start out in Vineland, New Jersey, where this player was born and raised before becoming a 7th round pick in the NFL.
Okay, there's one name that comes to mind from someone from New Jersey. I don't know if we're doing this for fun or a show bit, but there's one immediate name that came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, Rick tends to be a little bit better in terms of geography where some of these guys are from compared to me. So I want to hear what are the early names Rick is thinking of. From Vineland, New Jersey, 7th round pick. There's one immediate name from me, Rick, but I want to get your perspective. Like, who else are we concocting in our craniums here?
Well, who's the name you're thinking of?
Oh, come on, you know. Tommy the Paisan. Tommy Cutlets.
But he was undrafted, though.
Was he?
Yeah, he wasn't drafted.
Oh, I thought he was a 7th round pick.
No, nope.
Dang.
I have a name, but I don't necessarily know if he's a Jersey kid. The only thing that's throwing me is that later on in his post-NFL career, he was a co-owner for an Arena League football team. And I think it was in his hometown. That's why I'm a little thrown here. But whenever you go Northeast Region 7th round pick, I have one name in mind that I definitely want to go with. Marcus Colston.
That is a good shout. But no,
Hofstra alum.
Colston. Are we counting Cutlets as I guess, or are we moving?
No, that's fine. You count as a guess. Absolutely, that's fine. Hofstra, see, what threw me is that he co-owned a team in like either Allentown or Harrisburg. So I guess it was like a hometown thing from there. But
are we counting Tommy Cutlets too?
Yeah, sure. Just count it.
All right. Well, nicknamed Pop at a young age, this 2-time Super Bowl champion only played for one team in his NFL career so far.
Okay, the so far means he's still going then.
True.
So it's active NFL player that was drafted in the 7th round, who's won 2 Super Bowls with one team. So it's a small list of guys with multiple rings on a single team here that could still be active. I feel it's a small because then we also have to think like who are the teams within the last like let's ballpark it, Rick, and say like 8 or 9 years because that gives us the range of Patriots, Chiefs, and Eagles. So a 7th round pick, multiple rings on one of those squads because those are the multiple time Super Bowl winners. If we go back. I think 8 is the range, but maybe 9.
Wait a minute.
I think the nickname is going to give it away for him. Justin, I think Rick might be able to figure it out.
Is it because I had never heard of this nickname until I went on Wikipedia?
Pop is in P-O-P?
That's what it is.
No. Okay. There's a guy that I know who is nicknamed Pop, but it's not him because he's never won a Super Bowl.
Oh.
But he was definitely a 7th round pick. Huh.
Never, ever heard this person called Pop my entire life. According to Wikipedia, nickname is Pop.
It's not the guy I'm thinking of, but I will.
You know what's funny? I don't know if footballreference.com does this. I know basketballreference.com like gives the listed nicknames for guys. Yeah. And it's always funny because genuinely speaking, I see some of the nicknames listed for NBA players. And I'm just like, when has this nickname ever been said? Exactly. The role players are the confusing ones because when a role player gets a nickname, I'm like, okay, like they have to have like earned it. Like, but like some of these role players have nicknames, and I'm just like, who is giving them these names?
Yeah.
What we got, guys? What are we thinking?
Okay. I have 2 in mind actually now. But you're right, I've never heard one of them called Pop. But everything else lines up.
I was going to say the tricky thing for me is just I'm trying to think, like I'm trying to go into the depths of my brain of like who of these recent like Super Bowl champions has had a 7th round guy stick on the roster that many, like, you know?
Well, let me tell you who I thought it was initially when I heard the nickname Pop, just because I thought to myself, maybe, but he's never won a Super Bowl before because he's on one of those teams you mentioned, but he's on one of the teams on the backside of the run, and it was Demario Douglas. Because he's Pop Douglas, the wide receiver out of Liberty. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I came to a name that I realized was a 7th round pick. But again, I've never heard him called Pop before. It's a doozy. I don't necessarily know if Wikipedia is wrong on this one, but it is a doozy. Isaiah Pacheco.
Your guess?
He fits the description. Most of it, I don't know if Isaiah Pacheco's from Jersey or not, but I guess we're about to find out.
Well, he was a Rutgers kid, so probably. I'm imagining that when you're a 7th round pick, it means you didn't go very far from your hometown to your college, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily, but...
I would assume lots of 7th round picks are probably flyers on guys from an SEC school or something like that.
Is that a Jaden Key joke? Probably is, right? From Alabama, whatever his name was. Yeah, I'll lock in Isaiah Pacheco.
7th round pick, running back out of Rutgers, Isaiah Pacheco is your Name That Player of the Week.
It's so funny that his nickname is Pop because genuinely, if you look at his rushing style, there's nothing Pop about it. It's just not.
I don't know. I don't want to get popped by him.
Oh no.
Island running back.
No.
I don't necessarily know. It doesn't say where he got the nickname. It just says named Pop.
I don't mean that, like, obviously, like, Isaiah Pacheco would run through any normal human being, like, he would technically get popped, but I more mean like Pop. I feel like would belong to more like electric, like Tariq Cohen would have made more sense if his nickname was Pop back in the day.
I disagree. Yeah. I think you're thinking of Pop like exciting, shifty. I'm thinking Pop. I'm thinking like downhill bruiser. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of different.
Jerome Bettis is more of a Pop than Tariq Cohen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of different connotations to it.
That's the way my mind thinks of it. Michael Burner is more of a Pop than CJ2.
Although Burner is a better nickname. My personal favorite, though, is Bryant Big Country Reeves.
Big Country. Rick is waiting for another athlete to get the nickname of Big Country.
I am. So I was going to say, tune in next week when Justin's name that player is Nick Norwegian Death Metal Benito. You know,
Norwegian Death Metal.
I'm going musical this time around. I don't know.
That's the first time the nickname really threw anyone off.
Yeah, but it's a good one. I think it's a good nickname for him because I think you're right. I think depending on the way you take the connotation of Pop, I think it fits him because he does run with that good style like that.
I mean, once you did mention him, it's like, okay, 7th round pick makes sense. Like, I forgot who's from Jersey. I have a feeling Justin's third round of the hints was going to give it away in terms of either the team or something statistically.
I wouldn't have given, it was going to be running back out of Rutgers.
Running back. Okay, so then Rick definitely would have gotten it no matter what.
Yeah. That's why college was not in the first 2 hints.
Well, except for that one time when it was, and I still guffed it up because I forgot that Danny Woodhead went to Chadron State.
There was one that I forget what it was, but it was just like the most obscure thing, and I think Jerk got it immediately, and I had to do a second round. Maybe
yes,
it was like a really obscure player too, and Jerk just like pulled it out of his butt like crazy.
Well, you know what it was? I think it was one of those things where it's like I think you were just unlucky to where earlier that week I saw it either on Twitter or Instagram, and because that's happened twice. Because one of the times was Fitzpatrick, because recently,
Fitzpatrick was it was the answer to a trivia question. It wasn't the name of that player, but yes.
Oh, wasn't it?
It's all the same thing. That's how it happened.
Well, either or, but Fitz is like the most recent example where it's just like, oh, I literally saw this because like the whole trick was like he led the Dolphins in rushing yards the season he was there, which it then immediately brought us to look at the Dolphins roster from that season for a couple of minutes and just be like, good God, that roster was terrible. Which, game by game, season by season. I think Brian Flores was set up to fail.
You'd think that, right?
Is his case still going on? Because I think if it was still going on in 2025, I think the court evidence would show that he has a stronger case.
I don't think it is though, because I think if it was, he wouldn't be allowed to coach.
Yeah, probably not. But hypothetically, if he wanted to refile it, I think a court would give him a win.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
I think a court would give him a win at some point.
You're probably right.
Oh, good lordy above. Good lordy above. Justin, fantastic. Name that player right there. On Isaiah Pacheco. Was it? Hold on. You may have mentioned it. Justin, was this the? I don't remember any of the. I mean, you maybe have mentioned them in the past, but was this one of the ones where? Because you mentioning the nickname played somewhat of a role in this. Was like, have any of the other ones before? Have we ever had to like decipher it based off of a nickname? I don't remember off the top of my like.
I don't remember giving a lot of nicknames. It's not like it's something that I've intentionally given every time. But I do think this is the first time I remember where I gave a nickname and you guys were like, well, I think I have the player, but the nickname makes me think I don't have the player anymore.
Yeah, there are some interesting, in general, nicknames for guys here. Apparently, speaking of Ryan Fitzpatrick, because I'm looking this up now because I want to see nicknames. Apparently, there's a quote that Ryan Fitzpatrick's nickname is the Amish Rifle because of the beard and because he's a quarterback.
I mean, once you put two and two together, okay, but just is he Amish like of descent? Like
no, he's not.
I believe it's
yeah.
There's something going on there.
I agree. God, there's
there's something going on there to say the very least. Well, well done on Justin's end on this one, ladies and gentlemen. So let's continue. Let's let the good times roll. And let's go full throttle with maybe a speed bump in the mix. Let's go all gas, no brakes, ladies and gentlemen. The now weekly segment that we have brought into the being of the show. There it is, perfection. Knowing me and my ability behind a wheel, which is not that much, it would end in a fiery demise, hopefully for myself in a single car wreck. But ultimately, all gas, no brakes, as people would know. If this, thank you. If we had, or if you had joined us last week, if you had not, go back and see what last week's was. But basically, All Gas, No Brakes is a new segment where one of the three of us will be selected by the higher powers of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast to ultimately give us anywhere from 3 to 4 hot-ish takes, kind of like Overreaction Monday-esque, which we can't call Overreaction Monday since we're not doing this on Monday. And, is this overreacting? Time will tell on some of these takes. So it was the Podfather last week. He gave us his 4 takes. I'm going this week. The committee selected me, so I'm going to give my 4 takes / concept / question / you can interpret this however you want to, ladies and gentlemen. It's the interpretation of each topic is really up for the beauty is in the eye of the beholder kind of deal. Anyways, let's get to it, boys. All gas, no brakes. With 4 takes, I was telling the boys before this, I have divided it perfectly. I have 2 AFC, 2 NFC. Does not need to be the standard going forward, of course, but this was just a week where I felt it was perfectly even to select from each one. And definitely a couple topics I was very interested in bringing up that I left outside of this that we'll maybe slightly hit upon in some way, shape, or form once we get to the week 2 slate recap for ourselves. But, boys, first topic for my all gas, no brakes. The Philadelphia Eagles. And, the start that they on. Yes, they've started 2-0, correct? They defeated the Cowboys in week 1 with not scoring a single thing in the second half of that game. And they defeated the Kansas City Chiefs, which, again, the offense did, they scored a bit more in the second half last week, which is not that high of a bar considering what the first game of the season was. But even in the victories, of course, the defense, you could say, was looking pretty good. But it's been the issue of the offense, right? Saquon has had 2 decent games, decent for his standard because of what he did last season. Jalen Hurts, I don't think, has passed for over 200 yards in a single game of the first 2 games of the season. And notably absent, really, from majority of the stat sheet was A.J. Brown and his impact. So, boys, my first all gas, no brakes is that the Eagles are missing Kellen Moore badly. The night and day shift of the offense from what we saw last season, where Kellen Moore really opened things up for that team with their talent, the way he was able to use the talents of Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, and just the perfection of the vertical passing attack with those two, combined with the ability of Saquon and what he can do as a dynamic playmaker in the running game. And I just feel that now, again, 2 weeks in, this could all change. But as of now, I think we're seeing very early here that the Eagles are missing Kellen Moore because of the way he was able to scheme stuff up. It made Jalen Hurts and co look like they were one of the best passing attacks in the league last year, which, to be fair, they were. But now this season, it's clear they've taken a step back against, honestly, I know the Cowboys secondary is solid, but the defense overall is nothing to write home about for them. And Kansas City, I think we can all agree that team on both sides of the ball, there was something a little bit, we've seen differences this year compared to what they've been. Again, maybe you want to say two great teams, but I also think you can put up good games against good teams. And I just think so far we're clearly seeing the Eagles miss Kellen Moore right now and the offense that he could do and what he could scheme up.
I'll go first. Well, first of all, A.J. Brown's is in for a rough season, I think. He's really going to end up struggling because I took him second in the second round of my fantasy draft, so it's not going to work out well for him. That being said,
so you're the curse.
I think they definitely miss him, but not because they're not going to be okay. It's a new system. It's a new scheme. They're going to have time to work things out. They did have a tougher schedule. I mean, believe it or not, that Cowboys team isn't as bad as we thought they would be right out of the gate. They're not going to be great, but they'll be 1-1 to start the year, and it's not like the Chiefs came out swinging. They do have a great defense, and they've been known to confuse and shut down teams before, especially teams that rely heavily on the run game. So I don't think it's something that they need to be holding their breath about just yet. But, it's not what they thought it would be right out of the gate. There's definitely some growing pains in this new offense.
I think this is more about Doug Nussmeier than it is about Kellen Moore, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to say pump the brakes on it. Because I think that Doug Nussmeier, who's now the offensive coordinator for the Saints, he is the one that kind of helped Jalen Hurts become that MVP caliber talent that he was last year. Kellen Moore was the one that was creating most of the plays. But I feel like if you look at the rest of their coaching staff, not much has changed aside from, because their new offensive coordinator was their passing coordinator and their associate head coach last year, Patullo. So he's been there. The big ones that have changed for me were the passing coordinator now is Parks Frazier, who was with the Dolphins last year, which was a disaster. And the new quarterbacks coach was the former head coach of Bowling Green State University, Scott Loeffler, who in his time with the Falcons of the Maction League were 27-41. That's the guy you want to tell Jalen Hurts how to be a quarterback in this league?
Maction, baby.
So I think any offensive coordinator would have been fine if it weren't for like those lesser known pieces. And I think you're seeing it. I mean, look, to go with Nussmeier here, the week 1 wasn't that great for the Saints. Week 2, Spencer Rattler was impressive in week 2. He got his feet underneath him. So Justin's right. I mean, like the first couple of games, they were difficult. One's a division matchup, one's a Super Bowl rematch. It doesn't get any easier because you have the Rams in week 3, and you know how their defense is. Again, Byron Young is an absolute beast. Not even mentioning Verse and Fisk. They did nothing in week 2. I see pump the brakes for now, but I will say that if we get to week 4 and there's still some struggles, you may be onto something. But for right now, it's a hit that brake pedal a little bit.
All right. We'll see. First one could be rebrought back because that is the way this works. Any of us can bring back any of these takes throughout the season or bring up new ones. That's the way the game works. All right. That was take number 1. Take number 2 has to do with the team that the Philadelphia Eagles were able to defeat in their game, which was the Kansas City Chiefs. And, I always feel that it's it's always a fine line to me of, there's so many factors in games that can decide the outcome, right? Whether it's a 3-point game or even a 20-point loss, either or. Like, it's sometimes tough to say one play made that. Now, sometimes you can, and that's why I always say you walk a fine line when it comes to that. And with this past Chiefs-Eagles game, which was closer than the previous time these two teams met, there was definitely a play that spoke out to a lot of people, and that was a certain receiving option for the Kansas City Chiefs having a wide open pass and just absolutely bobbling it and losing it to the other team. And it has not been a pretty 2 weeks to start the season, not just for the Chiefs, but this player in particular, which is why my take for me is that regardless of how this season will end for the Kansas City Chiefs, I have Travis Kelce retiring at the end of 2025 because just 2 games in, and I almost want to say, looking back at it, I was maybe not as much in the postseason, but I think some of this can trail back to last year's postseason in certain instances to where it feels like he's honestly a step slower than what he's been in years past. And while we could say, well, aging, that happens, and it's natural, unless you're LeBron James, apparently. But it's natural for a guy to be a step slower, and that's perfectly fine. That is not it's not just, it's not me saying this because Travis Kelce has been a speed demon. He's not Tyreek Hill. But where my issue is with Travis Kelce and his regression is that his ability to be relatively quick has helped him get separation, has helped him, get in those windows, get wide open in certain instances, and just be that step ahead sometimes of a linebacker, of a safety, to where he can get in position to catch whatever Mahomes is throwing to him. Now, Mahomes has also sort of regressed on the deep ball this year, which probably hasn't helped him through games. But I think Travis Kelce in the first 2 games, and again, I think some of this goes back even into the end of the postseason run last year, has started to look like a half step slower, and that half step is making the difference between him getting in space and running his routes as crisply to get these receptions more and more, or running into his teammates, separating their shoulders, or losing a ball and it going to the other team. So to me, Travis Kelce, I think this is going to be the final season of his career after what the first 2 weeks has been, because he in no way, shape, or form looks like the same Travis Kelce we have seen for the most part for the last 5-6 years.
My father used to tell me a story about back when he was getting his driver's license. He was driving around like the 70s and so. And that would be a case where you would pull into a gas station, and even if your car didn't need it, you still gave it high test gasoline because you wanted to watch the thing basically stand up on its back legs and squeal and the tires spin and then roar out of there. So pour that high test gasoline on this fire. I am all gas on this, but not for the reason that you think. I think that Travis is looking past it. I think he's looking past football on the playing field right now. He's on to other things. The New Heights podcast has taken the world by storm, basically. He's got all these other sponsor deals. He's got all this other sponsor money. Not to mention, it is quite a big thing to have to be Mr. Taylor Swift and, juggle everything. There's a reason why Taylor Swift's song 15 talked about dating the quarterback on the football team at 15 and not at 35. Because at 35, it's time to settle on down and figure out phase 2 of your life. Swifties out there will know. But I will say this too. I think the curse is real. I think that I know he wanted to come back for one more year because of sour taste in his mouth and everything. I personally think that he lost a half step last year. And I think that it's just continued to regress this year. And I don't see it getting any better. Right now, he only has 6 catches this season through 2 games. 6. Now, 108 yards and a touchdown, fine. And you're right, Mahomes' deep balls are not the same, but he's not the same guy that he once was. And so, to me, this is an easy all gas. And I mean, get ready for that future life of sitting there and having to hear more of these tortured poet department songs, all your life, because it's basically what he signed up for. I
mean, he gets to be a trophy husband. Like, he made good money, but he's married to someone that's going to be making more than him. That's off the field. That's a W.
All I'm going to say while I continue pouring gas on this fire is that Kylie Kelsey's better than Taylor Swift. Just saying.
There you go. Follow that up, Justin.
I'm not going to take sides here on the Kylie Taylor debate, but
I meant my take, not his.
I know. No, I mean, I'm all gas on this too. I mean, he's just, was he 36? Like, I don't think it's that unheard of for us to turn around and say, hey, he's probably going to retire sometime soon. The question is, what is the date that we are expecting? And if you were to tell me it's this year, I'd fully believe it, regardless of the Taylor Swift news and all that stuff. I just think that, he's just getting there, man. I mean, he's getting older. He has probably lost a step or two. And it doesn't help that they don't have any receivers to take any pressure off him, because realistically, he'd probably be, starting tight end and a lot of other teams in this league right now, too. It's just, he's not doing what we expect him to do. And if they're not going to compete, what's the point of sticking around?
Yeah. And to your point, like, obviously, I think this is amplified in the first 2 weeks because of the lack of support that's around. Like, if 30-year-old Travis Kelce was here, everything would be fine. He probably would have 300 yards for the first 2 games. But it is that amplification of the fact that Rashee Rice was an idiot, got himself suspended 6 games, not stopping the Chiefs from wearing shirts as if he was in prison wrongly. Idiots. And then Xavier Worthy got his shoulder taken out, ironically, by Kelce. But it just to me, kind of like your point, Justin, it's like, it wasn't like, yes, age and seasons, but it made me curious when I was thinking of this. I was kind of like, well, I don't want to just put this here for no reason, because obviously, hot take, old guy is starting to not be as good as what he used to do. I'm like, let me look at not production wise, but more so like just length. And like Travis Kelce, we know he's upper echelon tight end of all time, right? So I was looking at some of the other all-time tight ends, like Tony Gonzalez played, I think, 17 seasons. Antonio Gates played for 18 seasons. Jason Witten, obviously I have Travis Kelce above Jason Witten all time, but just Jason Witten, a guy who has a lot of great production in his career. I think he was around for 16, 17 season range. So just the fact that, in theory, strongly, that Kelce could play 2 to 3 more years if he so wanted to. But again, different reasons for different people. Rick thinks it's off the field, which I think is more than valid. I think that probably is, but I also think, just generally speaking, he's no longer, like, I don't think Travis Kelce can be in the conversation for the best tight end in the league anymore. And now, if he is, I think that says something about the entirety of the tight end position around the league more than anything else. But he's nowhere near the best guy in the league anymore. He's not, like, peak is different, but this ain't peak. This is nowhere near it. So that is what brings me there. So Travis Kelce, 2025, that will be your end. And the Swifties... Yeah, the Swifties will lose one of the people that they actually know in football. Moving on, next thing. So, like I said, I have it balanced. I've gone NFC, AFC. I'm jumping back to the NFC here on a team that, we expected them to be good coming into the season. And then they did something to change the team up a little bit, and they were really good in week 1. And they're like, okay, let's see a little bit more, right? They had a good test in week 1. Okay, they performed. Now, what about week 2? They have another solid test in week 2. Well, they performed just as good. You can arguably say, if not better, because the quarterback they faced was even more dynamic on paper than the guy they beat in week 1, excuse me. So, that being said, I think it's officially time to say, and I have no qualms with saying it, because of the weaknesses of other teams, because how great they've been. Not only are the Packers a legit Super Bowl contender, or aren't legit Super Bowl contenders, I think they are looking to be the team to beat in the NFC right now. I changed the wording slightly because I was going to confuse myself with my original wording. But I feel like this year's Packers are showing signs of what last year's Eagles team was. Now, Josh Jacobs is not Saquon Barkley, but the idea of you have a strong bell cow back as your lead rusher who can have a phenomenal season. Josh Jacobs had a really good year 1, honestly. He was the 3rd best free agent running back last year, and the only reason is because Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley were also on new teams for the first season. Those were quite literally the only 2 guys better than him in the league in terms of running backs that changed teams last year. You have a guy who can take on that load on an offensive side and perform well. Josh Jacobs has performed immensely well for Green Bay over the first 20 or so games he's played for them, playoffs included. You have Jordan Love, who's a very strong, solid quarterback, not necessarily top 5 like Jalen Hurts, but can have moments where he plays like he's a top 5 quarterback like Jalen Hurts. You have a receiving core where this is the one detractor. You could say it's less talented on paper than the Eagles receiving core of last year. Obviously, there's no A.J. Brown, there's no Devontae Smith, but there's plenty of good talent there, and apparently Tucker Kraft just decide to play like a top 5 tight end out of nowhere last week. And then the defensive side of things, now that Micah Parsons is there, he has wreaked havoc in the first 2 weeks. Genuinely speaking, he was chasing after Jaden Daniels on a number of occasions. He may have only finished with like a sack and a half, but it does not tell the whole story of how impactful he was in that game. They beat the Detroit Lions handily. They beat the Washington Commanders without, a team that was explosive offensively last year. They made them look like they were a mid-tier offense in that game. Green Bay Packers are the team to beat right now in the NFC, according to this hot take / all gas no breaks.
They're the team to beat, not a Super Bowl contender. Is that what we're saying?
I mean, I have both. If you want to focus more on the second part of it, that's fine. I think we can all agree. Well, I think a lot of people are earmarking them as Super Bowl contenders early on.
Okay. I mean, look, I had them as a Super Bowl contender to begin with. I know a lot of people didn't necessarily think that they were the team to beat, but I don't think it's unheard of to say that they are one of the teams to beat in the NFC. We already thought that going into the year, and that they had a couple pieces, and they're still a young team, and we'll see what's going on. But now we know, this is a team that's for real right now. So I could pour some gas on that.
There's a lot of 2002 Tampa Bay comparisons that I think you can make with the Green Bay Packers right now currently. To your point, Jurg, about the wide receiver core, the only receiver that the Bucs had in 02 was Keyshawn Johnson, who got over 1,000 yards receiving. Brad Johnson threw 22 touchdown passes over the season, and it was the defense that really, shone. The running game was fine with Pittman there and Allstott, but after Johnson, you had an over-the-hill Keenan McCardle and a lesser-than-talented Joe Jurevicius as like the third receiver, I would say. It was the defense that carried them. So there's a lot of parallels here. But to call them the team to beat in the NFC and to call them legit Super Bowl contenders is tight. Pump the brakes a little bit. The Lions have a brand new offensive scheme, and they're still where they couldn't work out the kinks in week 1. We knew what was going to happen with them. The Commanders, clearly Jaden Daniels isn't at his own at 100%. I say there's a good chance for me that the Packers get to November the 10th, 8-0. But that's the game you're going to circle. You want to beat the Super Bowl contenders and beat the team to beat in the NFC? Go beat the ones that are the defending. Go beat the defending champions and the Eagles. Now, to be fair, the Packers' schedule is extremely soft getting up to that game. And it got softer, to be honest with you. I mean, it's the Browns this week, the Cowboys the following, then the Bengals without Joe Burrow most likely. And then you have the Cardinals, and then the Steelers and Carolina going into that Philadelphia game. That's the game you circle now. That's the game you watch for. So I'm not ready to crown them just yet, although I had them winning thanks to the Micah Parsons trade, and their defense has not at all looked like, they've lost a step or they have any chemistry issues. But let's see. Let's see what happens with that Eagles game. Let's see if the Lions can put up 52 points like they did last week. Let's see how that game goes. Because, again, keep in mind this, too. That second Lions game is the Thanksgiving game, which the Packers will be going into on a very short week. They play Sunday and then Thanksgiving Thursday. So I'm not ready to crown them just yet. But let's revisit this in November and let's see what happens.
100%. It's early, and these takes are based off of what we've seen, so we kind of have to go. But I think it's telling of the impact that Micah Parsons has had on an already. Justin has been, I think, the highest of the three of us on the Packers defense for the last couple of years. And now you add a player who has been in the Defensive Player of the Year candidate conversation essentially ever since his rookie season. So it was something I'm looking at and be like, you know what? There's something there. There is something with the conversation. Obviously, we'll see how much this statement holds water, and if we do need to come back to it in 4, 5, 6 weeks' time.
It's like they're taunting me from afar. It's like, you wanted to fire Matt LaFleur? We're going to add Micah Parsons. good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah, it's like me and Justin. When we predict coaches getting fired, the coaches get fired, and that's it. When Rick predicts a coach to get fired, it's like the team does a complete 180.
The team goes Super Saiyan and adds like 5 pieces.
Essentially,
becomes a dominant contender.
Essentially. So speaking of coaches and getting fired or not, there was definitely a coach that I think dating back to last season, there were a lot of questions about his job security and a lot of changes in the organization. Particularly, one of the sticking points was what could be done with the quarterback position in his organization. And again, it's only been a couple weeks, and I'm starting to think that the only reason a certain player was getting snaps at quarterback for this specific team was because it was a mandate from above. And I say with all due respect, sometimes the ultimate grand poobah in charge doesn't always know what the hell they're talking about. You know, if you don't believe me, look at what's happening to the Clippers. Anyways, that being said, I think, you know, I know it's early. I know it's 2 games. They could lose 7 in a row after this, which what a stroke of misfortune that would be after me saying this. But my last take here is for this season, boys, Shane Steichen will save himself from the hot seat this season. I think right now it's looking great. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Daniel Jones, not Danny Dimes. No. We don't use that especially because the U.S. is eliminating, you know, coins and currency. Danny Dollar Signs is what I call him when he performs well, and Danny Dollar Signs is performing well. Shane Steichen has him performing at the peak of what he can potentially do. He's limiting the things that Daniel Jones is bad at. He's accentuating, that's the proper word, right? Accentuating the things that he is perfect at in terms of throwing the football down the field, limiting the mistakes, not just through the air, but also on the ground. I think Daniel Jones, this has to be the greatest non-fumbling 2-game stretch of his career, it feels like. Like, everything is going well for him. The Colts are performing well. Jonathan Taylor is looking like how he did a couple years ago when he led the league in rushing in that one off season. The defense is looking pretty good. You know, special teams is well-rounded. So, again, it's only 2 games in. This is the sample size we have. But because of the conversation that was happening for his position last year and how they are starting off early, I think Shane Steichen will end up saving himself from any hot seat conversations this season, especially because right now they lead the division.
I'm going to say pump the brakes. But I'm going to say it for a different reason. I'm going to say that Steichen's already saved this year. Not because of anything on the field. Jim Irsay's passing put the organization to the kids, and I don't think the kids want to rock the boat so early on. I feel like things are working well. They're kind of new to this whole thing. You know, Carly Irsay-Gordon, for some reason, is on the sideline with a headset on. You know, which kind of to me screams like cleat chaser, you know, wannabe, you know, all that nonsense.
Well, to be fair, she's apparently been doing that for a couple seasons now. This is not the first.
I know, but it's more magnified now though because you know she's the principal owner and whatnot. I mean, I think I almost want to say this season's a wash. Like the more wins they get, the better they do is kind of just gravy on top of it. But I do think that you don't want to go into a new season with new ownership with so much upheaval, especially, you know, the ownership is still in the family name, so that the family did kind of sign off on all of these hires. And, you know, it has worked. But I think the ultimate blessing kind of is that the team that's passed on to the kids of the owner who has fought so hard to keep this franchise in the same city. And I think Steichen, I think next year, if they didn't perform well, Steichen would be on the hot seat like immediately. But I think this year's a wash. I do. I think kind of like Brian Dable's first year was a wash, you know? You know, no one's going to be that good. And look what the hell happened. They won Coach of the Year. You know, I think when you have major upheaval like this, you don't make any sudden knee-jerk moves, barring Shane Steichen pulling an Urban Meyer and kicking his kicker in the face.
Well, because my thing with saying this is that technically speaking, even though, like, I think the daughters of Jim Irsay, if they were rocking the boat, I think that would be cleaning house and also firing Ballard, the GM. I think if the Colts look like how the Dolphins or the Panthers did right now, I think Steichen, I don't think new ownership would save him because at this, I'm sure Jim Irsay has spoken to his daughters about this. These are not 3 rookies. Like, they've all been a part of the Colts organization in some way. I'm sure he's spoken to them in some way, shape, or form the last couple of years. And so I think Chris Ballard would have the permission to fire Shane Steichen. That's not an ownership. I mean, it can be. Knowing the Panthers, it probably is with Tepper. But I don't think I think it's still in Chris Ballard's hands what he would have done. If the Colts look like the Dolphins after 2 weeks this season, I think we would be in a complete 180 on this conversation right now.
I mean, here's my thing, too. In Shane Steichen's first 2 years, they were 500. 9-8, 8-9. It's a hell of a lot better than Dave Canales and a hell of a lot better than Brian Callahan, you know? So there are worse coaches, I'm going to just say. There are worse coaches.
There are bad coaches that are also 2-0 right now.
That's a fact.
Look, we said this was a quarterback away team. You know, for a long time we were like, oh, this defense is fantastic. You know, they have certain weapons and certain players and certain guys there that this could be a really close Super Bowl team. In fact, we were surprised that they went with a rookie head coach when they hired Shane Steichen because of what was going on there. So am I surprised that they're successful now that they're getting some semblance of quarterback play? No. Am I surprised that it's Danny Dimes? A little bit. But, you know, this is what happens when you have a little bit of consistency and a little bit of experience, I guess, behind the helm. And listen, we knew Shane Steichen was a good coach from his time with the Eagles. We just didn't necessarily know what he could do as a head coach. Now we're maybe seeing a little bit that he's got a little potential here. So I think he's safe as of right now.
Yeah. And that's what it is for me because, like, this ultimately, I think the changing of what happened with Mr. Irsay's passing ultimately led it to Ballard and Steichen being like, okay, like I think Ballard's saying like, okay, you pick the quarterback. Because I have to have the feeling like they picked Anthony Richardson, they wanted that to work. And it was ultimately up to Steichen. Look, if you don't want to start him, go ahead and not start him. But obviously there's the undertone of, well, if Daniel Jones doesn't start off hot and you can't coach him up, that quarterback decision is yours. So I think the fact that he stuck to his gut, what he believed in. I'm not just going to start the kid because he was drafted high. I'm going to start with the guy that looks like he's understanding my scheme and my system the proper way. I think I'm not saying that he would have been a top 5 coaches to be fired this season. I don't think he was that. But he is definitely a guy where 2-3 games into the season, his situation would have vastly changed. But his decision-making, because I'm not giving this to Chris Ballard. Overrated, GM? I'm not giving this to Chris Ballard. This was Shane Steichen's call to put Daniel Jones in there, his belief, his system, and he's rocking with it. So that's why I'm saying this, because I truly believe that dude has done himself the service that I don't think Chris Ballard has necessarily helped him out with over the last couple of years.
Well, we also have to give credence to the fact that, I mean, when they drafted him, we always thought Anthony Richardson was going to be a project. He was supposed to be a project out of college. He was never supposed to be the guy that started right out of the gate. But because of a lack of talent there, it didn't make sense for them to start anyone else. Now they brought someone in, a high-priced backup. They gave him some help and some semblance of, experience behind the helm. They've allowed Anthony Richardson to take a step back, take the pressure off him. His success doesn't necessarily dictate the success of the team anymore. And they can now put what they needed to put into this project. We're seeing a new team here.
Yeah. And that is Shane Steichen, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you forget it.
Yeah.
Don't you forget it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the 4th of my takes here for All Gas No Breaks. That was my selected 4. Based off of the results of week 2 and slightly of week 1. This is a growing thing, ladies and gentlemen. Everything will stack up on each other, to say the very least. So that was this week's segment of All Gas No Breaks. Next week, of course, in our revolving order, that means Justin will get his pick of the litter for takes next week, and he will present to us the 4 that follow. And we go from there. So that'll be next week. We're still on this week. And speaking of this week, let's continue talking about this past week of NFL action. Let's talk about some more of the highlights of week 2. So, slightly. Okay, as my mic is being screwed around with, slightly talked about some of the teams there. A little bit of an emphasis on that Chiefs Eagles game. I'm gonna be honest. For a Super Bowl rematch, I don't think there's really too much else to say about that game. Honestly, the Eagles defense was great, as both of you pointed out. The Chiefs defense rebounded after what looked like a tough week one, even though I think there were some scheming things that could have been improved on the Eagles offensive side of things. So that was a whatever rematch. The Eagles started out 2-0 as we expected. The Chiefs going 0-2, like the Podfather and I were kind of calling it to happen as part of his all gas no breaks take last week. So there's that. Mentioning the Colts, Shane Steichen, let's continue the conversation, boys. The Colts. One of you said this last week. The Colts are always due when we were talking about the pick challenge. The Colts are always due for like an upset early season, game that on paper the other team is more talented and they should probably win, and they ended up
Ravens last year, right? Early on.
I think it was last year.
You said that. Yeah.
Last year they beat the Ravens. 2 or 3 years ago they beat the Chiefs back when the Chiefs were still the Chiefs. Like this team always finds a way to get some kind of upset early in the season.
I forgot about that Chiefs game. They won the game.
Right.
Here's
the funny part.
That was a crazy game.
Yeah.
You know what's funny, Justin? The funny part is it's like I think it was multiple. Maybe not multiple. It was either 2 years in a row or maybe 2 out of 3 years where they had a season a matchup with the Chiefs and they beat the Chiefs when the Chiefs were just. It's like, oh, the Chiefs are going to go and they're going to wreck Indy, and Indy somehow wins. Like they just always do this. And now this year it was the Broncos that were the victim to it. Now Daniel Jones, looking like the ghost reincarnated of Andrew Luck now, helps the case. But the Colts, 2-0 start, boys. What do we make of it? Simply put, what do we make of the – you could focus on the Colts, Justin. I'll pose to you first. The Colts and the offensive proficiency that they continue to show. But really, I think in this case, I'm not trying to take away from Indy here, but it feels like, this was a game where Denver – it was the mental mistakes that cost them, especially the one at the end. Like they won the game. They won the game, but they committed a penalty at the end to make life easier for Indy. Like if we're calling it like we see it, that's ultimately what cost Denver the game at the end of the day.
So I was on a plane for a large chunk of the games that were going on. So I didn't see a ton of what happened. I only saw stats for the very tail end of the 1 o'clock games and the majority of the 4 o'clock games. That being said, I mean, it was exactly the game that I thought it was going to be. It's a rookie quarterback on a really strong team versus a veteran quarterback who had something to prove on another team that has a lot of weapons and defense, but didn't necessarily have the quarterback play that they expected to the last couple of years. It came down to the very end, as we expected. I don't want to say I'm surprised by the outcome, because I did give the Colts a chance to win this game. I would have picked the Broncos, but this is what good defenses do. And this is why we've really been all over the Colts the last couple of years, because they've been a quarterback away from making the playoffs. They've been a quarterback away from being relevant in the league and doing some real damage to teams that, let's frankly say it, are playoff teams. So I'm not super surprised. I would not have pegged them for a 2-0 start, maybe a 1-1. I wouldn't have pegged them for beating the Broncos this early on. I certainly wouldn't have pegged them for the absolute blowout of Miami. In fact, I think I picked Miami to win that game. But I can't sit here and say I'm all that surprised that a good football team is playing good football. I'm surprised at the performance of Danny Dimes, but I'm not surprised of the team as a whole. And I think they're going to continue to surprise some teams throughout the league this year.
They very much could, to say the very least. And they could get off to an even better start this week because they're facing the Titans, and they gave a veteran quarterback issues in week 1 with Tua. They gave a second-year quarterback issues.
Cam Ward gets his first one of the season.
And now, you're right, yeah, exactly. But now a rookie quarterback is coming in. So aside from the fact that they're facing QBs in ascending experience or descending experience order, which will eventually ascend at some point, like it is kind of everything. So to say the very least, Podfather, if you want to continue to talk about the Colts, you can. But other games that we could focus on here, a good amount of games. They weren't like a direct part of my first 4 or my 4 takes here. The all gas no break segment, but there's a game that went to overtime, Rick, that I don't think a lot of people expected to go to overtime. and expected to be one of the top 5 games of this early season. That was the Giants-Cowboys game. 40-37 finished in overtime. I mean, maybe if you expected it to go to overtime, sure, but I don't think anyone expected 40-37 to be the final score of that game. To say the very least, the Cowboys looked like they were. I mean, the game went back and forth. The Giants actually started out with a 10-point lead. Then the Cowboys, it went back and forth, back and forth. The Cowboys get the touchdown, George Pickens, so he's not going to punch a defensive back on the other team with less than a minute left in the fourth quarter yet. And then Russell Wilson just said, I used to be really good at this football thing, so let me sling it. And him and Malik Neighbors connect. Malik Neighbors, heck of a game for himself, a $167 and 2 touchdowns through the air, being the guy in New York easily. And then in overtime, Russell Wilson remembered who he has been the last couple of years. Game-breaking, back-breaking mistake. And the Cowboys are able to take advantage. Brandon Aubrey, best kicker in the league now? Probably. Yeah, it looks like he doesn't want to admit it. Must have been a tough day in the household there, but the Cowboys sneak away with a win. They were this close to an 0-2 start, but they grabbed victory there at the end. What do you make of that unexpected offensive barn burner, Rick?
So there was a point in this game where from the midpoint of the third quarter all the way through to the end of the regulation, there were 9 consecutive scoring drives between these teams. And it should have been 10. But Brian Dable forgot the one signature rule of football, which is that you take the goddamn points. Whenever you have a moment, it doesn't matter how close you are to the end zone, you take those points, because if you don't, you will rue it. And Giants are 0-2 because Russell Wilson midnight struck when Brandon Aubrey hit that 64-yard field goal at the end of regulation, and Cinderfella turned into a gosh darn pumpkin in overtime. Throws a ball backwards, and then throws a ball up in the air, hoping, praying, wishing upon a star, making no difference who they are, because Donovan Wilson was like, "Here, a gift for me. Thank you, Wilson." It was bad. And it was just like there were so many good things about this game, but all you remember is that one play, that one pass, the fact that these two teams combined for 984 yards of offense. Like, for a Giants team that was talked about with this vaunted defense, with Abdul Carter, with Thibodeau, with Dexter Lawrence, Okereke, Paulson Adebo, all these guys, they were on the field, but they were basically running around like in circles. Dallas's defense wasn't much better, but I mean, there were like a quarter of the amount of penalty yards in this game too. Bill Vinovich must have been like, I'm gonna get on the camera 35 times today, because good Lord, they had 26 penalties called between the two of them for 266 yards. And there were like 14 other penalties that were declined or were offsetting. I don't know. This game made no sense to me. It really made no sense. And, so if you're the Giants now, you didn't have any offense in week 1. You had no defense in week 2. So
what are you?
Exactly. What are you? I mean, I'm waiting for a Graham Gano 7 field goal game at this point, because they're going to have that, I guess, at the end. But Dallas needed it. Dallas needed the win because they needed to right the ship early. Because if they lost this game, they were 0-2 going this week in Chicago. That would be a problem for Brian Schottenheimer and this team and everybody there. But they gutted it out. They found a way to win, and that kind of shows you the resiliency of this Cowboys team and Prescott and these guys, and that no matter what happens, they're going to always rely on finding ways to win, whether it's through the air with CD or whether it's running the ball with Javonte Bluegrass Folk Williams, as his name is apparently now. So.
That's going to be one of the surprise one that Justin learns about.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, it is something because the Cowboys for like the all talk, and of course it was ultimately the passing offense that really did them good here. 361 yards for Dak in the air. About that. But Javonte Williams nearly 100-yard rushing game. They're going to need more of that and plenty of that to help themselves out throughout the course of the season. And big game for them to split now going into a Chicago game. We'll talk about the Bears briefly here in a moment because not a pretty one to say the very least for them. I want to talk about the Giants here real quick, and not so much them, but their Week 1 opponent that I briefly touched on in part of my all gas no breaks. But kind of like you said, Rick, like the Giants offense was really kind of chained down by the Commanders in that Week 1, and the defense. To be fair, like the final score, I feel was a lot more of a gaffe than it showed because the Giants defense did a fine enough job throughout the first 3 quarters for the most part. It was really that fourth quarter where they got too worn down, too tired down. Because remember, we were talking about going into Week 2. Brian Daboll allegedly asked the ownership of the Giants to let him start Jackson Dart. And they said no, clearly. Which, I mean, ended up being the best thing for them because Russell Wilson actually remembered how to play football for a week. TBD on if he will next week, but for this week at least he was able to remember. But the Commanders, after a decent enough game in Week 1, fall to the Packers in Week 2. I think this is just a scenario where, look, like this team that a lot of people are high on clearly showed there's still things that this roster need to be improved on. This is a team that offensive line, it's still trying to get cohesive because they've, early in the season now and even dating back to the end of the season last year, like they lost a piece, then they gained a piece in the offseason, Larry Tunsil, who on paper it's like, that's Larry Tunsil, he's really good. But last season was probably the worst one he'd had in a while, his most penalized season. I don't know if it was his most penalized season in his NFL career, but at least it was his most penalized in his Texans tenure, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, they're still trying to get everything together offensively. Defensively, I had my qualms. Like, that was my biggest thing with the team because they were a little bit, long in the tooth, as they say, on the defensive side. But it also didn't help that their starting running back, tore up one of his legs. Just a shame for Austin Eckler, as the title says, the Birdigamis and the Injur-Bees. Well, that's one of the Injur-Bees that happened, and it happened early in Week 2 with him. So that, to me, was good team people have faith in. Just ran into a team that is clearly playing at a high level to start the season. I think the Commanders will be relatively fine after that. The loss of Austin Eckler hurts, but I think they can find a way to scheme around that. They still have a solid running back room, although now trading away Brian Robinson, it's like, oh, you'd like a little bit more depth there now. But it's tough luck to say the least. So I think it's tough luck. The Commanders just ran into the better team, and that's what happens on, we talk about any given Sunday. On any given Sunday, sometimes just the better team can actually outright win, and that's kind of what it was for the Packers, a pretty controlling one. So what do you guys think? Is it cause for concern? Because we mainly talked about the Packers side, I think, like before. Cause for concern for the Commanders this week, or just tough game, move on to next week?
Well, I'm very worried about the Commanders this week. I'm very worried about them because it's not just Eckler. Jaden Daniels isn't going to practice until Friday. And so you're telling me that you're going from your rookie of the year quarterback and your revitalized Renaissance running back to an unproven rookie. Good rookie, don't get me wrong. Krosky Merritt's a good rookie, but still unproven, 2 weeks in. Didn't have a great game last week. And possibly Marcus Mariota this early on in the year. And you've got the Raiders at home. So Max Crosby running around to Marcus Mariota, who is their third string quarterback. Oh boy, it's Josh Johnson.
Mariota's a bit of a glass cannon.
In all reality, like, the Commanders didn't have that bad of a game against the Packers. They were just outscored. Like, the offense was fine. The defense was decent when it needed to be, but left points on the board because, the Matt Gay didn't really have a good leg. It is what it is. But man, this is kind of the thing that we worried about last year, and why we had the Commanders ranked so low was because you weren't sure how they would respond to adversity if Jaden Daniels was hurt or if he wasn't good enough. Maybe he's fine, but he's banged up. And if you leave him out there and he takes a bad hit or plants on the turf wrong, then Sorry, your season's over. So I'd be worried if I were the Commanders and their fan base.
Yeah, I mean, I am certainly not thrilled from that performance. Excuse me. There were a lot of question marks for this team going into last year, and they kind of settled a lot of it as we went. But that doesn't mean that those question marks went away. They just kind of answered. They kind of like won, I guess is really that was really the answer for them. So when you win, that settles a lot of the question marks. Now all of a sudden, they're not winning so often anymore. They played a decent game against the Giants. It's not like they blew them out of the water. They didn't look so great this week. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to that. Can they bring themselves back to a 2-1 record? Who do they play this week?
The Raiders.
Raiders, right?
Aren't coming off the greatest Monday Night Football game.
They're going to need to prove something against a team that realistically they probably should beat. But really, who knows?
Yeah, because Justin, to your point, and this is definitely going to be one of those factors to affect us in the hashtag SAOC picture, which will come later in the episode, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that, it's the potential of the injury. Because like Rick said, Daniels is going to practice the earliest Friday. So we're really not going to know any decision on that until maybe even the day of the game, all things considered. So fantasy owners are definitely going to love that. But, let's go to I want to talk about the Birdigami here in a second, but let's talk about the Injur-Bees, or as per the title of the show for the fun pun. It's the Commanders are now going to be potentially missing Jaden Daniels for this week. Still 50-50 in the air. We do not know as we are recording this. So if you are listening to this episode the day before the games, or the day before the Sunday slate, it's Wednesday night. So we have no idea what's happening. But there's that, Rick, just injuries galore kind of highlighting this past week of football. And I have a link here to help me. But just off the top of my head, like you mentioned, Jaden Daniels getting a bit banged up. He's 50-50 for this weekend. Joe Burrow being hurt in the Bengals' victory against the Jaguars, a very lucky victory, all things considered, when the backup quarterback throws 3 interceptions. Great ball protection there. The Burrow, we know, is now confirmed toe turf, which really downplays the kind of injury. If the guy's missing 3 months, I think it's a little bit more than just a turf toe. But he's going to be out for a couple months. The Bills-Jets game, tough one for Justin because Justin Fields got hurt in that one. Tyrod Taylor had to ultimately come in. 49ers Saints, there's probably an injury in that game, but that game was really beset beforehand of injuries because of the fact that Brock Purdy was out and it was the McCorkle Jones show there, right? Bears-Lions, the Bears lost one of their starting corners in that game due to injury. Jalen Johnson, he was ruled out with groin, and now I think we've seen was it season ending they said, or is it just he's going to miss significant time? I want to say it might be season ending for him this season.
Yeah, I think it might be season ending for him as well.
So season ending one in that game. Panthers Cardinals was a doozy to say the very least. Falcons Vikings, JJ McCarthy getting hurt, right? That does not help to say the very least in that instance. A number of injuries and teams dealing with injuries. Even the Eagles and the Chiefs game, Christian Fulton was hurt in the game against the Eagles, and he ended up being ruled out. You look across the league, just a bunch of team, AJ Terrell for the Falcons. JJ McCarthy got hurt. Falcons lose a starting corner in that game who was ruled out for the rest of the contest in there. I already mentioned the rough news, Justin, for you. Alex Highsmith was ruled out against Seattle. He was dealing with an ankle thing. Even Kyle Juszczyk and one of the 49ers offensive linemen got hurt. So just injuries beset a lot of teams in this one.
And there's more to that list that I think may have come in a little later on. Kalijah Kancey tore his pec. Yeah. He's done for the year. That's Tampa. That's brutal. Khalil Mack was in a sling for the Chargers. He has an elbow injury.
Just announced Cody Mock is now on IR and will miss the rest of the year. This season ending injury. He's starting left tackle for the Bucs also.
Yep. We mentioned the Vikings, McCarthy and Jones, both going to be out for a extended period of time. Brian Thomas apparently has a wrist injury. in Jacksonville, which is
Yes.
a big one. And maybe the oddest one, Sean McVay tore his plantar fascia on the sideline.
Ouch.
Get back, coach. You tore something in your foot, you know? So, but hey, guys,
just retire.
It's okay, though, because this feels like, remember the year we had the replacement refs? This feels like that because the Bengals signed both Sean Clifford and Mike White to compete with Jake Browning and Britt Rippon. The Vikings re-signed Cam Akers to compete with Jordan Mason. Obviously, you mentioned Mac Jones.
Oh, that's right, because Aaron Jones was also. I forgot to mention.
Yeah,
that.
Aaron Jones is on the IR. Yeah, so it's week 2. Kind of took a lot out of people.
Yeah, the injury gods did not waste time in this one.
No,
They did not.
They did not waste time. They struck a couple teams, and now it's going to be, as we've said, a couple of these guys are out for the season. Kalijah Cansey, Jalen Johnson, and now we're going to see, what is the injury timeline in terms of guys that can return and guys that were already injured, because I did mention that, that Niners game where Brock Purdy was already out. I want to say I've seen Brock Purdy is pushing to want to return here in week 3. So I guess we'll see there and how that'll affect things. But just a tough one. I want to focus in on 2 of the injuries here specifically for 2 of the games. And of course, it's going to be the 2 of the important position. But Joe Burrow and JJ McCarthy, the Bengals really escape with a victory at home against Jacksonville. Had that been a higher tier opponent, I think that would have been a team that could have taken way more advantage of 3 interceptions than Jacksonville did. But Browning and co, they were able to just escape by the skin of their teeth with a 31-27 victory. And then later on, 22-6 in the Falcons-Vikings game, the Falcons win, and JJ McCarthy, he's going to miss a couple weeks time due to his, I think it was his ankle, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not going to ask which one is more significant, because I think we both agree, kind of both are important for Joe Burrow being the franchise quarterback he is, and for JJ McCarthy being the young quarterback who he needs reps, right? Whatever opinions we may have of him, in the limited amount of time we've seen him, heck of a second half in week 1, followed by a game that wasn't looking to be its best in week 2. And we ultimately don't get the full complete picture. Now we're not going to even get a full complete second season of him because he's going to miss some time. So what do we make of both injuries? We know it impacts both teams negatively when you miss your starting quarterback who started the season for you. It's hot take, not ideal. Not ideal. So what do we think of the injuries and how it's going to impact both squads? The Bengals with Joe Burrow, I should say, and now the Vikings with their young quarterback once again missing valuable time.
I think it hurts the Bengals more. I mean, the Vikings, they were fine last year because Sam Darnold had his renaissance season. McCarthy didn't play at all, and they didn't really miss a beat. I think a lot there are injuries on the Vikings that are a lot worse that have McCarthy be out. You kind of knew this was going to be the case going into it. It's a bit of a red herring in a way. And so you just hope against hope that Carson Wentz can do something. But my prediction of Max Brosmer getting some reps this year is not too far-fetched, I think. But for the Bengals, man, because again, that AFC North is running the gauntlet basically. I mean, you have 3 great teams, and then Cleveland's there too. And so you try your best to run against these squads, and you got to remember that the Bengals still have games against the Ravens and the Steelers left. And even if Burrow does come back, which they're not closing the door entirely on him coming back this year, turf toe's no joke. I mean, I explained to my wife, because we were figuring out what it was. I explained to her kind of what the grade 3 nature of it is. It's brutal, man. It's brutal.
Oh, yeah.
It's essentially it's a funny name for a really bad injury. It's a hyperextension of the big toe, and in some grade 3 cases, your big toe gets planted to the ground. So just imagine that your foot like that, like this, okay, and your big toe is just like this the whole time. Try walking like that. You can't. It's impossible. Let alone planting your foot and playing football or anything like that. And it does kind of hurt the Bengals in the long run because I look at this game against, ironically, the Vikings, and if they somehow win and they go 3-0, then The next 4 games are Broncos, Lions, Packers, and Steelers. And you know what all 4 of those teams have in common? Phenomenal defenses. So,
and their starting quarterback.
Well, I mean, true. That's true. And then Jake Browning is going to be sitting there. And listen, Jake Browning's no slouch. When Burrow was hurt a couple of years ago and he was out for the season, Browning actually led them to a 9-8 record. So they finished in last place, but they were still 9-8. So they still did something. But you're asking a lot of him early in the season in a year when you paid a ton of guys, not Trey Hendrickson, but a ton of other guys to, be offensive weapons. I think it hurts the Bengals a lot more. And I'll be honest with you, it's not his fault in any way, but I can see this being Zach Taylor's final run if they don't come out of this somehow, unscathed.
That whole regime could go down.
Oh yeah,
that's a tough spot to be in if you're a Bengals.
I saw
an office or coaching staff.
We not just at the time. Well, yes, at the time, also retrospect. Like, we saw as it was happening, the mismanagement. Ryan Grigson should never be allowed to hold any actual NFL front office job ever again. I don't even care if he's the paper boy to the scouts. I don't care. Let him be your janitor. Let him be a security guard. The fact that we were robbed of the rest of Andrew Luck's career because that dude just could not, for the life of him, make a single decision to protect Andrew Luck was an issue. And the fact that I forget if it was the same amount of games, same amount of whatever it was, the stat. Burrow's been sacked more up to this point than whatever the comparative measurement is to Luck. That dude, Andrew Luck, lost his love of the game because of this. Bless Joe Burrow's heart and soul that he's likely going to continue to play, but it is not an easy thing. And it just the continuing. I'm sure you both have seen the tweet that the Bengals' offensive line has been consistently ranked to the bottom third of the league, and I'm being kind by saying bottom third. I think there was a season where they almost escaped. But yeah, but they've been a bottom 5 offensive line by every single kind of grading measurement you can throughout his entire time there. The fact they've made a Super Bowl with him there, it's just a testament. It's still saying what I'm saying, but yeah, and I know because you pointed out, Rick, they were able to escape with the win against Jacksonville, and there was the plus record a couple seasons ago, but that was a better defense. That was a way better defense than what this Bengals team has. 27 points to Jacksonville. Come on. And the reason why they won against the Browns, I will call a spade. They won because of a missed kick. The kicker absolutely sold the kick at the end of that game. So
I'm gonna ask a really interesting question though that I just thought of to both of you guys, if you don't mind. If you're Cincinnati right now, staring at this gauntlet, do you call Atlanta and ask about Kirk Cousins?
If it was only a year left, yes, but I don't know what the ramifications would be on if you bring him in because he's got 3 years left. He signed a 4-year deal. He's got 3 years left. How much would Atlanta be willing to take? Because it would have to be a bunch of cap gymnastics to the point of, at the end of the season, the plan would have to be to cut Cousins and not have that big of a cap hit, a dead cap charge reigning over. That would be the only thing. I think a team where, I heard some people floating this out of, what about the Vikings and JJ? And I'm like Cousins as JJ is out, I should clarify. And I'm here's why I would say no to that. A, JJ McCarthy's not going to be out for 3 months like Burrow is. And B, Cousins back to Minnesota already? Really? I don't know if that's going to end up happening. Cousins, if Joe Burrow, if this was second, third, fourth year Joe Burrow and it was that rookie deal, I actually kind of would see the logic there. But I don't, especially this is the Bengals. First off, they barely have enough staff in the front office. Who's going to be working overtime to figure that out right now, first? And second, you think Mike Brown is going to temporarily pay Kirk Cousins to be on his team when he didn't even want to pay Trey Hendrickson, who he's going to have for a full season?
Well, yeah, because it's an offensive weapon. So, offense.
I think he's going to – he draws the line somewhere. He's not going to pay a second quarterback. He probably – look, I'm still holding to my theory. I think Mike Brown hired someone to take out Joe Burrow's ankle before last season because he was hoping he wouldn't have to give him the big contract. I'm still saying it. I don't care. I don't care. I still think there's some salt to that theory. Mess with where the quarterback is going to be. Where the quarterback is going to drop back in practice and preseason. Yeah, just mess with the turf a little bit. Make it bad. Half the turf is freaking terrible in this league anyways. So with that being said, I don't disagree with this. Obviously, if you have to compare it, it hurts one team more than the other. It's going to be the team that kind of needs their superstar quarterback. But it's kind of tough for both. I think Justin, tell me if you – obviously, it sucks for Burrow that he's out. But just comparatively between the two situations, from the Bengals and Burrow perspective, this hurts the Bengals more because you're missing your franchise player. From the Vikings McCarthy perspective, I think this is rougher for McCarthy because he, more than anything else right now, needs more live in-game reps, and taking away 2 to 4 weeks, let's just say that's the range, taking 2 to 4 weeks away from him is not going to help his development curve right now.
Well, I'll give it to you this way. I think that short term, this is a much, much harder thing for the Bengals. We've seen what Joe Burrow can be, what Joe Burrow can do. I know he's got a history of injury now at this point, but that is likely due to the beating he's taken. Long term, this is way worse for the Vikings because of what they invested in JJ McCarthy. I mean, we have seen this kid play 2 games, and the rest of his career has been injury. He had missed his entire rookie season due to injury. He missed his entire he's going to miss his entire next game, I guess, is what I was going for this week because of injury. And look, the Vikings are already a good team. We had faith that they would be a decent team regardless of the play of their rookie quarterback. Now it's more, what do they do from here and where do they go? And is JJ McCarthy going to be the answer even after all of that invested draft capital?
To say the very least, questions to be answered for those teams. So, mentioned the Injur-Bees for the most part. Let's go to the Birdigami, which was a fun little factoid that we discovered during the weekend, where all of the bird-related NFL teams ended up copping some victories this week. It said that was the first time since 2020 was what the tweet said?
Something like that. Yeah, I believe so.
So the Falcons picked up the win over the Vikings, as we just mentioned, 22-6 victory. The Eagles picked up a 20-17 win over the Kansas City Chiefs. The Cardinals picked up the 27-22 victory over the Carolina Panthers. Well, actually, let's speak about that game here in a moment, boys. The Seahawks beat the Steelers 31-17, and the Ravens defeated the Cleveland Browns pretty handily, 41-17. Normally, we say AFC North games tend to be close and kind of weird and gutsy. Not that one. That one's the exception. That one is the Baltimore Ravens of, hey, we're pretty angry that we lost that first game against the Bills. So let's just decimate this team, and 41 points is what they do. Not similarly, they won in the first week, but the Bills were like, you know what? Let's not have to come back in this one. They defeated the Jets handily in MetLife. It's those other 3 games: Seahawks 31-17, Cardinals 27-22, Chiefs Eagles 20-17. We already kind of sort of talked about that Chiefs Eagles game. So the other 2 bird teams, boys, the bird was the word this past weekend. The Steelers 31-17 win, the Seahawks 31-17 win over the Steelers. Big bounce back week for Sam Darnold and co. after what was a slow week 1, and then the Cardinals 27-22 win. Kyler Murray 2-0 start now. Got to get the victories in hand before COD eventually comes out and new maps drop in Warzone. What do we make of those games' performances? Not just of the bird-related teams, of course, although the Birdigami is the cool part of it. But it is more so of offensive performances from the team all around, defense, and also the opposite side. What do we see from the Steelers and the tough defensive showing we're seeing from them this season, and the Carolina Panthers, and how we were 1 half away from trading Bryce Young again like we were last season?
The Steelers are good. They didn't start out so hot, but I think that they are once again en route for a 9-8 season. They might actually win a playoff game if they get some quarterback play, though. So we'll see what's going on with them.
Yeah, tough to say the very least. For them, Sam Darnold played. I mean, he did throw 2 interceptions, but he played a bit better for himself, nearly 300 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, only got sacked twice. Kenneth Walker, this was the big one, honestly, 105 yards for himself on the ground, 1 touchdown. And JSN had an amazing game, 103. Cooper Kupp had a great game, 9. It was really like just overall the offense came to play for Seattle, traveling well to face Pittsburgh. And in a Steelers defense, Rick, friend of the show, Mike Tomlin, what's going on with that defense? What's going on with him? That Steelers defense?
Well, again, one of the hallmarks that we constantly talk about when it comes to the sport is if you have a good defense, the only thing that makes them better is giving them ample time off the field. And Pittsburgh's offense was a little lackluster, and I think we all kind of know the reason why. There was not a whole lot that Aaron Rodgers did well in this game, I want to say. 18-33, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And, like I said, when you're, outplayed and outgunned like that, and your defense allows 395 yards the way that they did, it's because they were tired. It's because they, were on the field constantly. Seattle extended drives because they played really well. Oh, yeah, and it kind of helps when you're you take advantage of your opponent forgetting the rules on a kickoff. Good Lord. I think that guy's running laps or wind sprints at Clarion College nowadays or wherever their training camps are. But, I mean, look, yeah, they weren't going to go 16 and 17 and out. We all knew that from the start. Seattle's a good team. Seattle's got a lot of very young, talented players on their squad. You highlighted Walker, you highlighted JSN. Defense isn't a joke either for Seattle. They got a lot of good. This is the baby boom, Legion of baby boom, basically. You got guys like Kobe Bryant is in there. I like what they're doing with all of their secondary. Julian Love's a good veteran presence for them there. Rick Woolen, we loved Rick Woolen. And then, of course, there's Leonard Williams. But also, shout out to Marcus Lawrence. He's still playing at high level. So
yeah. Byron Murphy had a great game. Byron sacks for him.
Yeah, absolutely. To the other game, if I may, because I do kind of want to talk about Arizona a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I think this game was well in hand. I think they kind of let Carolina back into it a little at the end, and they gave Bryce Young a little bit of false hope because they were nice to the kid. But man, Calais Campbell,
dude, he still got it.
He still got it. 2-sack performance on the day for him, and Zaven Collins had a great game. Buda Baker had a really good game. I'll tell you something. Like, I think every year, and this might be just me. If it is, it's fine. Every year, I kind of fall for the Cardinals a little more here and there because they lure you in, with how they are, on both sides. But that defense, man, if that defense keeps playing the way they're playing, they're going to be a real problem. And again, you look ahead, and they're not facing Brock Purdy, and they're not playing George Kittle. They're playing the San Francisco team that's missing a lot of their stars.
Yeah,
I like this Arizona game. I really do.
And it's an early, these 2 early matchups with the Cardinals, like them and the 2-0 Niners, and then them versus the Seahawks. You have a real you don't. It's always hard to say. You don't clinch a playoff spot by winning in the first week or two, but you could certainly lose yourself ground in the postseason by losing early. And if you collect enough early wins, that could really help you as the season goes. We thought that's what the Vikings were doing last year before they ultimately became an actually good regular season team. And if you look at the Cardinals, there's a real chance. And then, Rick, let's mention this. Let's go to the next 3. It's Niners, it's Seahawks, and it's Titans. There's an actual real possibility they could start 5-0. And obviously there would still be 12 more games to go, but that might be enough in this division to give you enough of a buffer to lead to another postseason appearance, which for Jonathan Gannon never would have thought that before his first season.
Again, based on everything that we talked about, based on the way that things are shaking out, if you go through the entire Cardinals schedule, what are their tough games remaining? maybe when the Niners get their pieces back, that could be a tougher one. Obviously, the Packers game is difficult, but like the Jaguars, that's not that difficult. If the Bucs just lost Kancey, they lost one of their big pieces. They're still not at full strength. The Texans aren't what we thought they were.
Yeah, we'll get to them in a second.
Yeah.
I guess we could also say, to be fair, this was also the mindset of God, this feels like a lifetime ago. Remember the magical season they were having with Kyler and Cliff Kingsbury, and then it all fell apart in the second half, in particular because of the matchups against the Rams and how the Rams just absolutely decimated them.
Yeah.
That could very much play. To me, you mentioned the defense, and obviously any defense can have a bad game or multiple bad games. I don't necessarily think the Cardinals' defense is anything overwhelming, but I think the offense has not played up to the level they should be, and sort of talking about that with Kyler. But really, and James Conner had a good first week, so he's kind of free from this. Dude, again, I know he had a decent week 1, but Marvin Harrison Jr., you only get 2 catches?
Just years.
I know JC Horn is a very good corner when healthy, but come on now. You need to be showing up way more week in and week out. The only reason Brian Thomas Jr. is having bad games right now is literally because he's injured. He's playing through an injury, which honestly you could kind of argue is making things worse.
Yep.
I don't know. It's just consistency.
Playing their players through injury.
What were you saying?
Last year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not great to say the very least. I think we've hit a majority of the games here before the Monday night doubleheader. So let's talk about that real quick. Once again, I mean, not a high-scoring affair like it was those 2 years ago, but again, Buccaneers-Texans, fourth quarter, they just decided to go a little back and forth like a little tennis volley. Texans ended up taking the lead with a bit of time remaining on Nick Chubb, still decent runner, and then the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield said, "Well, let me show you what I do." And Baker Mayfield, there's reasons for conversations of him being one of the top crunch time QBs in the league right now, because he certainly was. A very balanced offensive attack from Tampa in this one. All the receivers got a little bit here and there. Mike Evans, 56 yards. Bucky Irving did great both through the air and on the ground. Rashad White got that touchdown at the end in the victory. Good all-around effort. What do we make of, Rick, you were kind of already alluding to it, the 0-2 start for the Texans, and then on the flip side, this 2-0 start for the Buccaneers?
Man, Houston's really, really interesting. Really interesting the way that they're kind of struggling a little bit here. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a lack of, doing the right things or, playing the right way. I think they're just struggling in the big moments. They can play a game fine, and then when it comes time for the offense to make a game-winning drive or the defense to make a game-winning stop, they just falter. There's just a little less life in them now, because I think in week 1 they had a chance they had the last drive, meaningful drive, and they couldn't get it done against the Rams. And then in this one, you take the lead, and all you're asking for is your defense just to hold and to bend but not break, and they broke. They broke at the very end, and it's tough. Ultimately, I do believe that Houston will be okay, but it's dicey because you're starting off 0-2. If the Colts weren't 2-0, I would be a little more secure in saying they're going to be fine. But given the fact that Indy's played well and Jacksonville is okay, I'm a little concerned for Houston. Again, they have no Joe Mixon, so they're relying on Nick Chubb and his reconstructed, whatever part of his leg has been reconstructed, which is everything, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's just say the whole leg.
and I mean, I guess Nico Collins is their 1, but I think he was much better as a 2 or a 3, to be honest with you. He was much better as not a guy who usually gets targeted, but the rest of that team, there's not really a whole lot there in their receiving core. I mean, Hutchinson's not stellar. Dalton Schultz hasn't really been that present, I would say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a little I'm a little intrigued by seeing what Houston does this week, but I'm a little concerned as well because if the Texans start 0-3, it's not going to be pretty.
I was going to say, in regards to Nico Collins, I think the thing is just more so the fact that there's no number two that I think CJ Stroud really has any faith in. Like the late season brutal injury from Tank Dell last year. Yep. I think this is where we're starting to see the effects of that more than ever right now, because just like
they're down a couple other receivers too, aren't they? They're down. They have Christian Kirk, who hasn't played yet. They've signed Braxton Berrios, who hasn't played yet. They went from having too many receivers to having one.
Because they even they traded why am I forgetting his name? Mechie. They traded they traded him as well.
They have Justin Watson, but he's on IR. So
like this team. I was gonna say, because I didn't know, I wanted to include something about the Texans in my all gas no break segment, but I was struggling on how to what aspect of them to focus on. So Justin, let me throw it to you. What do you think is I'm not saying one it's not one size fits all, but what do the Texans need to figure out here in this? Because honestly, like the defense, Rick mentioned, it's like they did bend don't break, they eventually broke, but only 20 points this week. They didn't let up a ton last week. Like I don't think it's the defense's fault these first 2 weeks.
No, they kept the games close, and realistically, you're disappointed in the way Stroud has performed, and you're disappointed in the way the offense has performed. But I know they're missing a lot of key pieces, but you got to have something, right? I mean, the Tampa Bay team is falling apart, and they couldn't really move the ball. So what are you expecting out of your team today, and what are you expecting out of your team for this season? If you can't seem to score more than what they have, 20 points? They have 19?
19, yeah.
They haven't scored more than 20 points yet this season.
Right.
The Jets have more total points than the Houston Texans.
Never want to be behind the Jets in anything.
I'm just saying, it's a bad stat with your young, highly touted quarterback who lit the world on fire in year one, and then was not as great year two. Now all of a sudden is having a regression from year two. And again, we could talk about how all the weapons are missing. They don't have the run game like they used to. Even though Chubb did okay, it's not what Joe Mixon was for that team. And the offensive line has gotten worse. So are you helping him as a GM? And if not, or if you are you worried about CJ Stroud?
I was going to say, Justin, the Jets scored more in the first game against the Steelers than the Texans have done in both games. The Texans have only scored 28 total points. So it's not looking great.
Good.
Houston, there might be a problem. If they start 0-3, that's going to be next week's title. Just saying that right now. The Patriots and Dolphins played. But, in the words of a soon-to-be-fired head coach, when the way you win games is you got to win the games and not lose the games. Because if you lose the games, that means you didn't win the games.
That's true.
Words of wisdom. Chargers 20-9 victory over the Raiders in the second game of the Monday Night Football doubleheader last week. Herbert, fine game. The rushing attack was kind of nowhere. Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton, neither of them were really great or efficient on the ground, aside from one or two runs here and there. It was just consistent, control the game. Defense closed in on the Raiders. Quentin Johnston, 71 yards, one tutty. He's showing a little more consistency. Just a tough day for the Raiders. Ashton Genty again, not too much to speak on. Not great yards per carry so far. Waiting for that big breakout game from him. Geno Smith, not the best second week for the Raiders, but don't worry. He's gonna shrug it off. He doesn't write back to the haters of the bad game, so we'll see what kind of game script that they'll write in the next one. But just a tough one to say the very least. They should be kind of thankful now with that close Patriots win, because the Raiders are very close to starting out 0-2 this season, to say the least, which would be very bad for them. What do we make of that Chargers-Raiders game? What are your big takeaways from that game, lads?
One takeaway on my end, and that's all I have. It doesn't help when you start the very first play on offense with an interception.
True.
Doesn't help.
Makes a difference.
Indeed, to say the very least. Justin, Rick mentioned it before, Khalil Mack, in a sling, not going to help the Chargers. You lose a guy like that, but ultimately, overall, That Chargers defense has looked pretty good to start the season. Huh? They gave Mahomes and the Chiefs issues in week 1, and now they shut down what was looking to be a potential dark horse upset pick in the Raiders in week 2.
Like I said, I believe in the Raiders, but I mean, let's not get crazy here. They played the Patriots week 1. The Patriots had a good win against the Miami Dolphins, who were looking to maybe draft a quarterback this year with the number 1 overall pick lately. But realistically, they are exactly who we thought they were through these 2 games. Let's see what they do this week.
Indeed, to say the very least. And speaking of what they're going to do this week, well, one of us could potentially decide how we think they're going to do this week. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the hashtag SAOC Pick Challenge, where on a weekly basis, the Podfather, our games master, and myself, the Iceman, we go through the NFL schedule on a week-to-week basis and pick 4 games a week on a 4-to-1 points basis scale, 4 points being the highest amount of confidence with a game we're going to pick, 1 point being the least amount of confidence in a game that we were deciding to pick. The 3 of us pick in a preset to determine order based on our points throughout the season. We do it in a serpentine draft order, is the way we do things around here. And of course, we pick these games in terms of who is favored coming into them based off of the betting lines given to us by our friends at
ESPN Bet.
Thank you, my good man. And we pick these games strictly based off of, who's favored. This is how we're basing this, because this also helps us decide our upset pick, because our upset pick is based on these lines, and we all must pick at least 1 upset throughout our first 3 selections. The lowest it can be used is your 2-point pick. That is one of the rules with our picks. The other one being we can pick a tie if we do so feel want to do so, but it can only be used with your 4-point pick, which gets upgraded to a, count 'em, 5-point pick. A little 4+1 action there for you, to say the very least.
Love these. Yeah.
In this case, I think this is one of. Is this the last? Is this week or next week the last game where we have 16? Or last week with all 16 games to pick from?
I'll tell you in just a second.
Okay, so we got to start out with a couple full weeks this week where it's all of us always get four games. It's a matter of the mascot / in this case entity that the 3 of us are facing on if they get 4 games or less than that throughout the season.
So I think week 5 is the first bye. So I think we have 2. We have this week and next week to go, and then week 5 is the first set of byes.
Okay, very nice. I like that. We're getting full weeks in before we start to have to do math on this show.
Yeah.
So I believe I listed out all the rules for the people. So that being said, I will shut up because I feel like I've been talking too much in this episode. Podfather, please give us an update on this season.
Gentlemen, we have a new leader in the Pick Challenge standings. Wait, sorry. I apologize. We have new leaders in the Pick Challenge standings. This was, and I mentioned this off the air to us before, that we made a little history. This was, in all the years we've been picking, the single greatest week that we have had doing picks this entire 153 plus whatever his episodes of the show. Because out of the 16 games picked between the 3 of us and the entities that shall not be named, combined 14-2.
That's pretty good.
Including Jurg and Justin both recording perfect weeks.
Let's go, Justin.
Which means that after the points were tabulated and tallied up properly, that both of you have 18 points because of the 10+1, which means you are both sitting in the lead, 2 ahead of the entity that shall not be named. Because
those 2 losses came from you, didn't they?
No.
Okay.
The entity that shall not be named had Minnesota on Sunday night over Atlanta. And then I had the Giants over the Cowboys. So it is Jurgen Justin at 18, the entity at 16, and the Podfather at 14.
It's pretty close.
I told you before the season that there's a very good chance that I'm going to be finishing in last place. And so far I'm correct. So far I'm 2 weeks in, I'm correct. But I have a good low about it. I want to say I'm content with myself. I think we're doing okay here.
Well, I also want to say that this is probably like, and again, this is me not remembering because I don't do the record keeping. Like, I feel like this is the closest it's been this early in the season. Like, I feel like the first 3 years of this, whoever was in third place was slowly starting to become a distant third, even by like week 4 or 5.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what this week is for, gentlemen. Because there's not a whole lot of games that are here that I'm fairly confident in whatsoever. And unfortunately, the one game. Well, actually, no. The one game. It's the same thing from last week. The one game that has the largest spread, I'm shying away from because I don't trust it. Buffalo running game looked great against the Jets, but the passing game did not look great. And Miami is desperate, I think. So I'm avoiding that entirely. I don't see it. See, this is week 3, and the question is, am I going to start myself by daring to pick an upset at 4 points and hoping for the best here? Do I push the panic button now, or do I wait on it for a week and see what happens? I think I'm going to wait on it for a week and see what happens. I think so. So it's worked so well the last couple of times out, so I'm going to take the mantle on it for myself this week. And damn you to all holy hell, Matt LaFleur. I'll take the Packers over the Browns before 4-pointer this week.
If you're not taking the Bills, you got to take that Packers.
Yeah, that's again. I mean, the only thing that gives me pause is that Flacco was pulled towards the end, and Dylan Gabriel looked fine. So my question is, are they going to deviate from the plan and start Dylan Gabriel? In which case, they got a mercy on all of our souls. But yeah, I think it's the most logical one to pick. Again, when I look at the Buffalo-Miami game, I see a team that's 2-0 and a team that's desperate to not be 0-3. The spread is huge. So if I was picking against the spread, I would pick Miami, no question about it. But straight up, nah, can't do it. So I'll take the next best option, Green Bay.
Yes, because, ladies and gentlemen, we are just simply using the lines to help us decide on what's an upset and what's not. We do not select based on covering or not.
This is not a shoot or a work.
Yeah. This is not a betting show either.
Yeah, that's true too. Yep, Justin.
I'm next.
Yep.
I am going to take the Bills. I'm not going to leave that game on the table. I understand that the passing attack didn't look great. It didn't need to look great against the Jets. They had James Cook running left and right and all over the place. I don't think the Dolphins' defense is as good as the Jets. And the Dolphins' secondary looked just porous, especially when they needed to be, good last week. So I'm going to give it to the Bills in Buffalo. Tua also has a bad record in Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Usually that's later in the year, but I don't think it matters. And this is a desperation game for Miami, and I hate picking Thursday night games, but they only got to win by 1. There's no chance Buffalo loses this game, right?
I was going to say, if this game was in Miami, just because weirdly enough, the Bills have struggled in Miami, just like how the Patriots struggled in Miami during their run. Like, the Bills tend to struggle in Miami. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, I feel like the schedule makers made this early game in Buffalo just to give Tua, throw him a bone where it's not that cold. But yeah, no, it's looking tough to say the very least. Okay, yeah, honestly, with what Rick was saying here, I think this week it would not surprise me. I'm saying this just because I have a rough feeling about it. It would not surprise me if whoever is technically in last place for us by the end of this week, going into next week's pick challenge, I think could be tough. I think this is the most unpredictable week of games that we're gonna. I think next week on paper we have a few more games that we're gonna like, whereas this one I'm it's kind of tough to pick. I'm torn between a couple different games here. That Chiefs-Giants game is staring at me, man. That thing is staring at me.
Let me tell you something. I will, if this game comes back to me, I will not be picking it.
That
I
being
have zero confidence.
Honestly, I'm not going to pick it. Let me clarify. I'm not going to pick it right now. I don't know if the Chiefs deserve to be ahead by 6.5 points right now. I'm just saying I don't think they deserve it with how the season is.
I will say, if the one thing that the Chiefs have done decently is play defense. If that Giants defense plays like they did last week, especially towards the end of the game, that's going to be way more than 7 points.
Yeah. So we'll see there. Oh, I can't wait for this to screw me over. Give me the Cowboys over the Bears. Because now that I review it, we actually didn't really talk about that Bears-Lions game, but
we didn't need to.
Yeah, I was going to say, not only did the Bears get absolutely decimated, they lost their number one starting corner, so CeeDee Lamb should have a good game in theory. Like, my thing is, and I've heard this through a couple different like podcasts and shows now, and I literally saw it during the Monday Night Football game against the Vikings. Once you get past the first couple drives of the game, after the first 15 to 20 scripted plays, I'm sorry, Caleb Williams looks lost out there.
Yeah.
And he has the natural talent, but it's not looking great. It's just not looking great. And the Cowboys, look, their defense, let me harken back to week 1's defense. They shut down the Eagles in the first half. I think they can do a decent job here in this game. And this offense should start to pick back up a little bit more of a rhythm, especially after the games they had. Like, to be fair, they've only had one bad half this season, and that was against the defending Super Bowl champions. Chicago Bears are not the defending Super Bowl champions, so I'll pick the Cowboys this one. Very close. It's a 1.5 spread in favor of Dallas, just barely. It's funny because the money line is even for what I'm looking at. So there's that. Okay, my second pick. If Jaden Daniels was healthy, I probably would pick the Commanders outright, but I'm kind of iffy on that one. Okay, which one of these two teams? They've both played close games. Well, the second one was slightly less close for one of them. They have a good defense on paper. That team has no offense except in the second half, apparently. All right, I'm going to be saving my upset pick for my 2-pointer because for my 3-pointer, give me the Seattle Seahawks over the New Orleans Saints. The Saints have been a second-half team.
The Seahawks 3 weeks in a row, Jerk, if you're going to take me here.
What happened?
How am I supposed to pick the Seahawks 3 weeks in a row?
Got to block you somehow, buddy.
Riding with Sammy the Savior.
Sammy the Savior. So those are my 2 picks, the Cowboys and the Seahawks.
All right. Who do I want here? Let's go with so many interesting matchups. And it's funny because a lot of these games, if the away team that's favored was the home team, it'd be so much easier to pick them.
Right?
It's not. It's not the case. So I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm just feeling a lot of upsets this week. So I'm gonna skip it for now because I have a feeling they're gonna come back to it. They might as well take the next best game on the docket, and this should be the first time that the Falcons actually look like what Rick predicted them to be. So let's take the Falcons over the Panthers here.
This should be interesting considering the Week 18 barn burner of a game these two teams had from last season.
I wanted that game to come back to me so badly, but I'm kind of okay with it not.
You were going to pick Bryce Young and the Panthers?
No, hell no.
Oh, okay.
Hell no. Not a chance. I am going to spring, though, for a double upset. 3-2. At three, I'm going to make a pick of something historical. Do you guys realize that the Texans haven't lost in Jacksonville since 2017? Every season since 2018 and beyond, every time they've been in Jacksonville, they've won convincingly. I see no reason why that changes now. Texans need a win here. And I foresee Bill O'Brien calling me and telling me that I'm a fighter or whatever he said at Penn State. So yeah, I'm going to take that one there, and that leads me to my other upset. And so I've got a bit of a choice here, and fortune favors the bold, and so I'm going to be bold on this one. And
I think I know where he's going with this.
Where am I going?
I mean, if you're saying fortune is favor, what?
Giants.
No, I picked them last week. They screwed me.
No, I think if he's saying fortune favors the bold, I think he's going with Cam Ward and the Titans over the Colts.
That would be a negative as well.
Ooh.
I'm going to go with Jake Browning. Give me the Bengals over the Vikings.
That was going to be my pick.
Because, I mean, it's a risky venture just because they're favoring so much of Joe Burrow not being in the game. But if you think about it in reality, it's just one guy. And Jake Browning has played with this offense before. He knows how to make this offense run. We don't know that about Carson Wentz and the Vikings.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that it's not just him. It's Aaron Jones.
Yep.
It's Van Ginkel.
Yep.
It's Darisaw might not be playing in this game.
Yep.
There's a lot of other issues that are there for the Vikings that are more than just one quarterback.
This is also, like, I'm sorry, aside from Harrison Smith, this has still been a relatively, like, on paper, not a great defensive secondary, and they have to deal with both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And
Mike Gesicki, because everyone loves the tight end. So, yeah, I think the Bengals will have enough to go 3-0. And it's going to be a sloppy game. I'm going to put it at the top of that. It's going to be a very sloppy game, but I think they're going to have enough to pull it out in the end, especially in a weather-controlled arena like Minnesota is. Give me the Bengals.
I just want to say I'm very proud of you guys so far because there's another really big spread that I feel like I've trained you guys to stay away from now. Nobody is taking the Bucs at home over the Jets.
Okay. Look, wait, what is he talking about?
And it is you guys have learned. Good job.
It's a big spread, obviously, because of Tyrod Taylor, but no Kalijah Kancey. That worries me.
No Kalijah Kancey. No. By the way, he finished that game.
With a torn pec? Yeah.
No, also on the line.
Yeah.
He blew out his knee and he finished the game.
Yep. He's a bad man. But that's the thing too is that I can foresee Breece Hall having a big game.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I'm not picking them either.
Why would you
pick an upset pick here? So I'm going to go with my boys, my dark horse team for the year. I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders to beat the Washington Commanders.
He started with an L there. I was so concerned. Like, no, he took my pick.
Okay.
You're going to take the Rams, Jerry?
Yeah, dude, I have concerns about the Eagles. I don't think they're, as chalk as we think they are. Does chalk mean strong?
I know what you meant by it, but it's not like the Rams have been lighting people up either.
They haven't, but I still think, Rick loves that defense. I think there's a reason. I think that's one of the best defenses in the league early on. It's a great front four. It's a solid secondary on paper. Before I lock that in, what are the rest of the games here that are available? There's Lions, Ravens, right?
Yep.
There's
Jets,
Bucks available.
Jets, Bucks.
Yeah.
Chiefs, Giants.
I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Titans, Colts. We know how much you love that.
Dude,
Niners.
I feel like every single time early in the season when I try to pick a Titans game like that, it screws me over.
Jerk also has to pick an upset here.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm going with an upset. It's just I'm saying of the other games,
Steelers,
I think
Patriots.
The Rams are the best bet here in terms of
Steelers, Patriots is a potential.
See, it's so weird because I actually think Drake May is a good quarterback, but watch this be the game the Steelers defense rebounds.
But there's also the Cardinals are a 2.5 point underdog against the Niners.
See, but I'm more of a Niner believer than the two of you are. That's the problem.
You like McCorkle.
I just think when that defense is healthy, they can actually, somewhat play. So the Rams will be my official 2-point upset pick. What are you talking about? I'm picking against the defending champions. And then with my 1-point pick.
Also, Denver over the Chargers would have been an upset pick too. Just saying.
You want to talk about a coin flip? Look, they have to turn their season around because if they don't, if this team starts out 0-3, I think Travis Kelce might retire after the loss.
Retired going into week 4.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously.
Getting the plan, guys. I'm out of here.
Yeah, right. You can just retire for a couple weeks. Yeah.
That's why he proposed. He was expecting a 3rd ring. He finally got it.
Oh yeah, that's the meme that everyone was saying. That
I just put that together. I haven't heard that yet.
He was 100%. He was going to propose. Had the Chiefs beat the Eagles and gotten the 3-peat, he would have proposed, and I think he would have already retired. I don't think the Chiefs have Travis Kelce if they win that Super Bowl.
Oh, I was just making a joke that he got the 3rd ring.
That's also a gaudy ring. But then again, the Super Bowl rings are also pretty gaudy too. So
I was going to say the Podfather was very critical with that Travis Kelce ring selection.
Still am.
Look, if they lose this game, it's full on panic mode. So give me the Chiefs over the Giants.
Okay.
All right, that leaves it up to me. Let's go with the Steelers in New England over the Patriots. If the Patriots would have been 0-2 going into this game, I might have thought otherwise, but I could see them being a 1-2 team. Just not even record wise, this is what seems like it makes the most sense. 2-1 and 1-2. All of the logic out the window.
I'm actually content with that because while I do see this, my 1-pointer as a trap game for the 2-0 team, I have no faith in the 0-2 team. And considering the news that just came out today that this team is more acclimated to a run game with a quarterback who, they drafted number 1. It's not the Jets, Justin.
Oh, okay.
Give me the Colts over the Titans. I think that's the only logical play you can make there is to do that. So I think that leaves 4 very difficult games for the entity to choose from. However,
by the way, can I say entity best mascot?
Oh yeah, I know. You love it. I will say this: the entity loves birds. So when Arizona upset at 4 over San Francisco,
At 4,
she loves red birds. And then she went Ravens over the Lions at 3. Not really a fan of the Lions this week. I think one of her lion toys, did something wrong, like bounced back and hit her in the head or whatever the case is. And then again, just despite all of this, the entity went Tampa at 2, and the Chargers at 1. Just because. So there you have it. So. Here we go. Leader in the clubhouse by virtue of winning the championship last year, Jurg has Dallas at 4 over Chicago. Weak. Seattle at 3 over, I forget who they're playing at this point. I don't really even know at this point.
The Saints?
Oh, yes, the Saints. Weak. The Rams over the Eagles at 2, fraudulent. And then Kansas City at 1 over the Giants. I hope you lose that game, just because I want to see that. I'd love to see a war where the Chiefs are over 3. I mean, Justin goes Buffalo at 4 over Miami because obviously, you got to take the spread that I leave on the board there. Then Atlanta at 3 over Carolina. No one lives in Bryce Young, obviously. Vegas at 2 over Washington. Again, if Daniels doesn't play or if he's limited, I can see that one holding true. And the beauty of doing these games on Wednesdays is that we're locking them in. So if the line changes, it doesn't matter because it's still an upset technically.
True.
And then Pittsburgh at 1 over New England. The entity who's in 3rd place, they go Arizona upset at 4, Baltimore at 3, Tampa at 2, and the Chargers at 1. And then there's me. then there's we at one point had a really nice run. At one point, Green Bay at 4, Houston ended upset at 3, Cincy at 2, and an upset in Indianapolis at 1.
The only reason that it's rough to see Rick in last place consistently is because I missed him cutting promos.
Right?
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I don't know why you have this version of Chalk Rick, because I always love picking right after you. Because I'm always like, oh, cool, he left the game that I wanted to pick. And that's the only reason I stay where I am.
Okay.
Please.
You want to know where my aversion to chalk comes from? Do you remember the first year that we did this? Do you remember the first year how
he remembers something specific about the first year? Yes, he does.
How I picked chalk, and then that next week, you know what happened? I was sitting outside on my patio drinking a Dunkin' Pumpkin Ice Latte because I lost all 4 games.
I remember that. I remember that very clearly. It wasn't even that warm out. You were like, it was like 65 degrees, 60 degrees out.
Yeah. It was bad. It was terrible.
Yeah, that was
and the Wi-Fi gods were joking with me because I didn't have Wi-Fi in my basement apartment, so I had to go outside to do it. So ever since that day, I made a vow to myself and I promised myself that I'm going to try my best not to pick chalk whenever I can, because when I think things are a sure thing, they turn out not to be a sure thing.
Hey, it got him a championship, so.
I mean, do we talk about that or do we not? Because
talk about it. It's not like it didn't happen 3 years in a row. It wasn't just you.
Sure.
I mean, that is true. That is true. Jerk, where's the second trophy, by the way?
I still need to decide what the second trophy is.
Okay. All right.
That's the amazing part. But summer's been so busy, I haven't even gotten to look at a selection of miniature trophies and decide which one I want. I'm trying because first time I picked the computer to kind of be like, you all use a computer, it's kind of funny. You picking the chicken was just pure me. I'm trying to find like a good, funny second trophy, but I haven't found a good one yet.
We'll find one.
We'll find one. With that being said, by the way, before we transition to this, I forgot to let you guys know, so I want to get Rick's on-screen reaction to this. So you guys know how I forever trust my legs as my mode of transportation. A couple weeks ago when I was going to do some grocery shopping, when I'd come back to Connecticut from my trip, I just looked like, as I'm walking to the grocery store, I look across the street because across the street a block away from the grocery store I go to there's been a Dunkin' Donuts there for however many years, but like ever since I moved, I've always seen it. And I just looked across one time and I was like, they removed the Dunkin' signs. They like taped off the parking lot. The Dunkin' Donuts is gone. Like it just randomly closed down at some point during the summer or early fall. So I'm like,
I was waiting for you to tell me it was a Tim Hortons.
I'm like, I was gonna say we need to play a personal picking game of what that could end up becoming, because I look at the structure. I'm like, okay, what would replace it? Like,
you got to give this good news in the beginning of the episode, because now I feel like the rant might not have that kind of flavor. You just.
No. I think this is gonna motivate him. He's
about now.
I think the vibes are gonna be good here. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we always end off the episode, Rant and Rick's roast from podium. Podfather, take it away.
So, just as a sidebar to that conversation, this season and last season too, but mostly this season primarily, every Sunday baseball game that I had in Brooklyn, we did what's called a Timbit Sunday. Basically, I would go to a local Tim Hortons on the way to the stadium and buy 2 boxes of the 40-count Timbit Munchkins just for our entire press box, just to have. That was our tradition. Last night, they won the league championship. I'm not going to say it was because of the Timbits, but I'm going to say it was because of the Timbits. So I'm just saying. Also, by the way, Duck Donuts, also phenomenal. If you ever have the chance to go get Duck Donuts, so much better than Dunkin', but not here nor there. As per usual, on the Renton podium, the honorable mention is Dallas Cowboys. Even though they won this week, it's still the Dallas Cowboys because reasons. Okay, number 3 on today's rant is for Travis Kelce's wardrobe and hair. I mean, you ever hear the expression, did you get dressed in the dark? Like literally, I feel like that's what happened because there's no lights and Travis Kelce's apartment or the palatial mansion where he's spending all the rest of his time with those gaudy rings and those terrible, everything else. And incidentally, too, another sidebar, if you feel the need that you have to travel places with a folding wall to hide behind while you're walking places, you don't deserve to be a celebrity. I'm sorry, Taylor, but, face the people. Like they all want to see you as a face the people because that's ridiculous. Like stop being you. Number 2, this is a special one. This goes out to that pizza delivery driver who almost scammed me out of my pizza the other night because I ordered it off of an application that I won't name, Slice, and then never got a notification about the pizza being delivered. Showed up an hour late, and then the driver walks out of his car and he's like hands me my garlic knots and my desserts, and it's like, oh, sorry, I think I picked up the wrong pizza. I need to go back to the restaurant and get it. I was like, let me see the pizza. It was what I ordered. I was like, nope, this is mine. You get no tip. Get out of here. Don't scam me. I'm smarter than the average bear. Or as my daughter says, I'm smart. I don't know where her accent comes from because I clearly don't have one, but what are we doing here? And number 1 on the list for me, I'm going to get gross, and I apologize, but this is going to be bad. There are some commercials that are on the radio that I'm constantly hearing regarding a disease of the intestines, but the dialogue is just not normal. It's like, thanks for having lunch with me in Greenwich Village today. It was so nice to catch up. Can we go to a bathroom soon? Why? Well, I sometimes get this, and sometimes diarrhea, and it's like, okay, I'm not friends with you anymore. If you ever bring that up to me in conversation like that again, I'm going to say, you need help, you need Jesus, and you need a therapist. All in one. These radio commercials, these ads, they're just the worst nowadays. And I get it, theater of the mind, but it's like the next thing that I'm going to hear is somebody promoting a Skibbity toilet on the radio, and I'm not going to be a fan of it. It's just annoying. Again, back to my old man ranting on the podium. Get out of here with your Ohio Riz and all that other nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And commercials got to stay vague. It's like there's the Family Guy joke. There's a reason why on certain commercials the liquid is blue and not red. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. The vagueness is gone because I'm assuming that Adam Rank is now controlling the commercials that we watch nowadays because the vagueness is gone. And so, and literally, it sounds like a commercial that Vince Russo drew up, It's just, why? And yeah, that's the podium with an honorable mention to the Dallas Cowboys and, of course, to our mentions of Adam Rank and everything else. And, and one more thing. Stop merging colleges. Elon and Queens are merging. Why? Just stop. Nobody wants to see it. The Elon Queens Royal Phoenix or whatever they're going to be, just cut it. Cut it right now. It's over.
I mean, to be fair, Royal Phoenix is kind of a cool mascot name, to say the least. But see, Justin, he delivered. We got to give him more good news before the rain podium's down. Tell him when the Duncan closest to you, Justin, closes. You got to make sure to let Rick know.
I thought they did, but they were just remodeling.
I wonder if that's what's happening to the one near me then. We'll figure it
now,
out.
Now you dropped the bomb. Now he's got something to really rant about. Podium,
this is my villain origin story right here. Kirk misled me on a Duncan closing.
Hey, it looks close to me. They ripped off the logo from the top. What do you want me to think?
I don't know.
Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this week's edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Week 2 was an eventful week, to say the very least. Guys got injured. Teams are slowly beginning to lose hope. We'll see who can regain hope. Some teams regained hope. There's just a hopeful/depression week all around in week 2 of the season. We'll see what week 3 continues to bring us. Of course, once again, next week in another, can't really call it Chaos After Dark if we're doing everything after dark these days, but it was the perpetual night of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast here for the 2025 NFL season. From all of us to you, may we have, once again, another phenomenal week of football. From your friends who love to have fun football and cause a bit of chaos. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. We will see you guys next time. Take care.